What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and we're just days away now. What, 2 or 3 days away, I believe, from the launch of Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. It is, in fact, the Rings of Power week. I don't know if you knew that, but the media is in full-on attack mode right now, calling anyone who criticizes the Rings of Power, of course, say it with me, trolls. And it's pretty interesting to watch, as most of us, by the way, who've been covering this or consuming this type of content saw this coming miles away. And it's cool that see so many people seeing it, calling it out, exposing it for what it is. It is gaslighting, misdirection. It's a way for them to ignore legitimate criticism, and it's absolutely pathetic. We're going to get into that after a quick word from this video's sponsor. Huge shout out to this video's sponsor, Bloodline Heroes of Lithas. Bloodline Heroes of Lithas is a card-based fantasy RPG in 3D realistic graphics where you can not only collect champions, build kingdoms, but also create legendary heirs of your houses by combining the forces of various bloodlines such as orcs, demons, and dragonborn. And of course, with their new slogan, Legends Will Be Born, the game has a unique art style, traditional Western fantasy, and visually stunning 3D graphics. You can choose your path by raising heirs with true companions from a vast fantasy world, customize your champions by marrying different bloodlines until you find a unique combination of any 5 powerful abilities out of dozens of traits that suits your own need for gameplay. You could build your own kingdom and economy, and the game's free to play on both Android and iOS. Now, help support the channel and try out a new game by downloading the game using the link in the description or the QR code you see on the screen. Use my link and choose your path in Bloodline Heroes of Lithas today. Use promo code BLDHOL2. Meet your true companions and create legendary heirs in this one-of-a-kind epic fantasy RPG. Staring down the trolls. What's really behind the battle over the Rings of Power? It's probably gonna be racism. Toxic fans have been trying to sink Amazon's big ticket series, but their motives and influences are raising new questions. Are they new? Smash that like button right now if you believe that the questions that will be raised will in fact not be new. That the questions will in fact be the same old questions. If some of the negative discourse surrounding Amazon's Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, the Ring-a-ling-a-ding-dong sounds familiar, it's because we've been here before so many times. Well, maybe you should start listening to people. While backlash campaigns to revivals of popular franchises have been growing in the past few years because we don't want them, particularly when those projects touch on inclusivity. Proof? Oh, you're just going to say that? Okay, cool. The digital trolls seem to have dialed up their intensity in the lead up to the Rings of Power, which finally arrives this week after years of development. The good news is, outside of a small subset of fandom, or in some cases of people who had their own more nefarious agendas, wow, you better have some evidence for that. The effort doesn't seem to be making much of a dent in the high expectations for the series. Really? I've seen videos on YouTube dunking on the series surpass 1 million views. 1 million. I'm not very excited for Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, the ring toss game. I mean, I'll check it out, but I would not be paying extra money to Amazon for it. It might be tempting to chalk up all these social media skirmishes to a fight between loyal fans who simply want to preserve the integrity of the thing they love and a multinational corporation looking to cash in on that devotion with little understanding of the work that inspired it. To be fair, that's partly true. No, it's exclusively true. It's 100% true. By all accounts, The Rings of Power will be the most expensive series ever made. Amazon didn't commit an estimated $1 billion, literally not hyperbole, on a 5-season order without expecting to see a return on that investment. What former Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos wanted was his own Game of Thrones, as if one massive fantasy franchise is the same as the other. Let's not pretend the primary goal of this production isn't to add to the company's bottom line, but to think any different would be naive. No kidding. I imagine it's pretty shocking that you'd even have to write that. It's also true that Amazon Studios put the show's creative work in a tough spot. They were charged with making a Lord of the Rings series that appealed to the widest audience possible without alienating diehard fans. Meanwhile, the show had to be at least somewhat faithful to Tolkien, should be entirely faithful to Tolkien, who famously refused all attempts to adapt any of his writing in his lifetime, despite having limited rights to his works and a limited time period in which to tell stories to take place over a millennia. That's a tall order for anyone's standards, but showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay come up with the idea to mine the appendices at the end of the Return of the King stories from the Second Age of Middle-earth. Here we go. Some not-so-veiled hate speech. Isn't that what we expected, friends? Predictably, some of them use their criticisms as a smokescreen for their own racist reactions. Can you prove that? Can you prove that? From the moment in February when Vanity Fair dropped the first images from Rings of Power, a series of lavishly shot and detailed character portraits and posters, there have been a steady stream of grumbling about the inclusion of actors of color. It's not about the inclusion of actors of color, it's about the forced inclusion of actors of color. Because they don't exist in Tolkien's world. Because of where we know the story took place. And we know you're only doing it to check boxes. Now, there's been a steady stream of grumbling about the inclusion, portrayal of the elven Lady Galadriel, one of the few characters carried over from the stories, as a warrior in a suit of armor. These critics may not believe labels like racist apply to them, but their opinions give them away. I'm all for diversity in media, they assert. I just don't think black dwarves or dark-skinned elves belong in Middle-earth. Well, we know they don't. It's not even an opinion, it's a fact. Now, I don't necessarily think that quote-unquote ruins the show. It could still be great. So people say, oh, Galadriel should be the pinnacle of feminine energy. Why are they ever acting like a man? That's a good question. What's really telling is that those in a group often take any condemnation of the more openly prejudiced members of the fan community as an attack on them personally. When Morfydd Clark, who plays Galadriel in the new series, stood up for her black castmates in an Instagram post, she was widely excoriated for it by the same folks. This person's talking about YouTubers. It's because it's all baloney sausage. Nobody was insulting them personally. And by the way, if they were, I stand with you against it. I just think that it's so predictable. It's like part of the marketing plan now for these shows to like fake these like hate campaigns for free press. When producer Lindsay Weber told Time that she and the rest of the creative staff were up for criticism but were not up for racism, those concerns were dismissed as an attempt to shut down the show's detractors with unfounded accusations. They were unfounded. Yet these statements weren't made in a vacuum. All you need to do is scroll through the comments of these critical posts or videos to see the toxicity runs rampant. Inflammatory statements and ulterior motives. Here's where the author is going to pretend that they know you, the critic of the show, and judge you for it. And then at the far end of the spectrum, there are the outrage brokers who use emotional manipulation to boost their channels. See, now you know they're talking about YouTube. Or promote their own agendas, ranging from mainstreaming alt-right ideologies to the monetization of anger for clout. Literally what this person is doing. They get more than enough attention as it is, and less said about them is better. There's some cross-pollination between this group and the previous one, but the true hucksters are easy to spot. Look for inflammatory statements in all caps, like the word woke or SJW or normies, all used in a pejorative sense. That's a pretty good sign there are ulterior motives behind the rant you're watching, and that has nothing to do with Lord of the Rings. How can you possibly know that? The content creators in this space aren't just rooting for the show to fail, they need it to. It's going to be a train wreck, one YouTuber gleefully predicted, and I just can't wait. I feel like I said that. But I also feel like anyone else could have said that too. Ironically, these critics have become hindered by the same algorithm that allowed them to thrive in the first place. Originality is not rewarded within this ecosystem, so all social media accounts that operate in a similar fashion start blending together after a while. And the impact of individual trolls diminishes when everyone's channels look and sound the same. There are signs that attempted takedowns are becoming less influential, though. With each new project they set out to sink, I don't want to sink it. I thought this person said we need it, like we need the show for clicks. Why would we want it to not exist? Despite similar complaints against Netflix's adaptation of The Sandman, the casting actors of color in the roles of characters portrayed as white in the comics, the series was #1 and the streamer's top 10 list soon after it was premiered. We also know that that is not actually data-driven, that they just put shows in there that they want. It holds the #4 position as of writing campaigns to denigrate Marvel projects like Captain Marvel and Shang-Chi have proved similarly toothless. Really? Shang-Chi didn't make any money at the movie theater. And by the way, I'm not sure that there were quote-unquote similar efforts against Shang-Chi. Because, I mean, I guess I don't watch other people's YouTube videos when they're talking about the same topic as me, unless they're maybe disagreeing with me. So, like, I don't really know that there was a ton of criticism against it. I mean, the main actor was kind of cringy, and there was some drama around that. But, like, for the most part, no one, the movie was fine, a generic action film that came and went. It was no real big deal. No Frodo, no Aragorn, no Gollum. What is this Lord of the Rings of Power all about again? Well, it's about nothingness. It's about corporatism. Lenny Henry, unapologetic about altering J.R.R. Tolkien's works in The Lord of the Rings, saying, quote, "We are telling the story now." Well, yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, we're just 2 days away. Interestingly, Henry spoke out in the Sunday Times and specifically addressed changing races of the characters as originally depicted in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings of Power. He explained that has everything to do with modern identity politics, saying that's to do with it being in the 21st century. People want to see themselves. You mean 20 years ago in Lord of the Rings, when it was a worldwide sensation, the world has changed that much? Interestingly, Henry then pointed out what Prime Video is doing is not depicted in the books, and that he himself read, and his daughter, when she was young. Of course, if you go back, there's going to be some things that prevail because the books don't say, although some of the characters are described as hard-skinned or darker in complexion. Nevertheless, he declares, but that was then and this is now, and we're telling the story now. That's what I want. I mean, that's saying it right out loud, isn't it? They're just saying it right out loud now. They're laughing at Tolkien fans, right? The guy that wrote it, he's not telling the story. Hater. It's us, a multinational global corporation. Wow, thanks for letting us know who's actually telling the story. So you've basically confirmed that this isn't Tolkien's work and that it's not Tolkien's telling the story. We'll find out in just 2 days, I guess 3 days technically. If you enjoyed this video, please do leave a like in the comment section down below, and we'll talk to you again real soon.